Hello, my darlings. Just wanted to thank everybody again that watched the live stream for watching the live stream. Thank you for watching the live stream. That's the only announcement I got today, babes. Let's go! What is your funniest critical failure moment in Dungeons & Dragons? Part 3. In college, I played a fighter named Unfear who was particularly unlucky in combat. I usually couldn't make a roll to save my life. One time, our party encountered a really nasty monster, don't remember exactly what, which was heavily armored, dealt a lot of damage, and had a mind control ability that would allow it to take control of a character. So the fight isn't going our way. We are taking damage and hardly scratching the monster, and the DM decides to roll out the mind control ability. Unluckily, Unfear gets selected as the target, and I massively fail my save against the mind control attempt. The GM gleefully turns my character on a nearby member of our party and attacks. The GM rolls a critical miss for the attack, then rolls that the attack actually hits the monster, and then rolls a critical hit on the monster and kills it. Clearly, Unfear was even more incompetent when mind controlled than normal. The really strange thing was that just before I rolled to try to save against the mind control, I had a mind flash where I saw exactly what was going to happen, and then it actually went down exactly that way. It still kind of freaks me out 35 years later. Delphinius the Elf Rogue is a reformed criminal. He is plotting to overthrow the royal family. Delphinius's method of regicide involves a banquet at a great hall that was built to commemorate his wondrous humanitarian endeavors. Building an orphanage, donating to charities, selflessly rescuing the downtrodden, etc. All the while, he's actually a chaotic evil reincarnation of a hobgoblin thug who was slighted and killed by regal guards. Things were going swimmingly for Delphinius. Preparations for the banquet were all set. The last piece of the puzzle was falling into place. Late the night before the event, Delphinius's lackey, Forgath, a slow-witted hobgoblin, whom Delphinius grew up with, was bringing a carriage full of lamp oil, followed by a mule with 2 powder kegs to the hall. A guard noticed the goings-on and decided to inspect what was happening. The guard assaulted Forgath and extracted the full plan. Poor Forgath was not good at many things, especially when it came to keeping his mouth shut. Shortly thereafter, Delphinius the Pious was apprehended by the guards, disturbing his innocent evening of fornicating with paid professionals. They haul him off to the stockades. The next morning, he is awoken with a bucket of cold water and is brought into a courtroom. An inquisitor walks in and wastes no time. DM: roll a will save to resist zone of truth. Me: okay. I felt all right about this. I had a decent will save and took the feat Iron Will. Rolls d20. Oh shit, natural 1. DM: all right, Mr. Delphinius. Tell us exactly what you were planning for the evening of the king's banquet. Long story short, they expedited poor Delphinius's execution. He was later resurrected as a bugbear by a crazy witch doctor. His adventures continued for many moons. Once upon a time, I think back in the Second Age, i.e. Advanced D&D 2nd Edition, I was playing an illusionist. She liked to read, so was unlucky when she was reading a book coated with ultimate glue. So she had to carry on doing her thing with a book stuck to one hand. A session or so later, she had clearly not learned her lesson and looked through another book. I was immediately suspicious of the DM's grin when he called for a saving throw, which, naturally, she failed. And the curse was that she couldn't put down that book either. So a huge book attached to both hands meant no spell casting and a permanent carer to do stuff for her. She failed another saving throw a bit later and was incinerated by a fireball, but while it lasted, I got experience playing someone spiraling into depression. She was one of the more unfortunate characters I have played. Another time I was not the recipient. We were a pretty high level and well-equipped party becoming terrified in the Tomb of Horrors. Somewhere in there is a room filled with webs, in which 2 of the party got properly stuck. All the group were elven or half-elven, so we all had infravision, and therefore no tinderbox or other fire source. And the webs had to be burned away. So my magic user stepped up, consulting her spell list. Fireball was the only fire spell she had memorized. Those caught in the web were not happy. This was before Fireball was capped at 10d6, and the players were staring down the barrel of about 15d6 damage. But it was the only way, so boom. And I swear, I have not seen so much high rolling before or since, all in the open. Almost all 5s and 6s, about 80 damage in all, saving throws followed. We were high level. The save was basically 2 or higher. One of them passed, but the other, not so much. Item saving throws for all his gear could have gone better. It was funny, but intra-party relationships were somewhat strained for a bit. Not in D&D, but in Runequest. Our party included a most annoying sorcerer, my character, a dwarf warrior, and another, a very strong centaur, decided enough was enough. During a night's camp in the wilderness, the 2 of us sneaked into his tent. He was asleep, completely unguarded. The 2 of us grinned, and both swung our weapons. And both of us fumbled, badly. We hit each other, and were badly wounded. The commotion roused the sorcerer. Seeing the 2 of us stricken, he immediately concluded the camp was under attack and launched a preemptive strike of all his magical defenses into the surrounding area, and thereby wiped out a previously undetected group of trolls that was, in fact, about to ambush the party. The GM cursed a bit and muttered something about, the only way you could have effectively defended against that attack. The sorcerer, unaware of our evil intent, determined that we had been wounded trying to defend him and richly rewarded us for saving his life. Okay, this wasn't my character, but it was one of the guys in our party. We were playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which is a pretty deadly system. No huge stockpiles of hit points there, no levels, just skill and stat advancements. So the level 1 guys actually have a chance of killing the level 18 guys if they got a lucky shot in. One of our group had just lost his original character and rolled a new one, an elf. The DM introduced the new elf as traveling down the road, passing by the farm the rest of the party had stopped at for the evening, just as a horde of undead were descending on us. Why? I'm not exactly sure. This was over 10 years ago. So the battle against the dead begins, and this elf comes to our aid. A complete stranger, but we're like, yeah man, we need the help. They'll get us all otherwise, etc. 2 rounds of combat in, my buddy's elf rolls a critical failure, trips over a rock in combat, then he rolls another failure, resulting in him busting his head open on a rock and dying. Poor bastard, we never even knew his name, but we did take the couple silver he had in his pocket. This is going to sound cruel, so let me explain by saying that we were a bunch of 19-year-old guys doing military service overseas. Young, dumb, full of all kinds of bad ideas, and finally free from the oppression of our parents and teachers. Also, we were playing an evil campaign because, well, I think 19-year-old guys kind of covers that. I critically failed a spell save against what I thought was a teleportation spell, but was in fact an illusion instead. The DM informed me that my character found himself lying on his back in a wooden container about 6 foot by 3 foot by 2 foot in dimension, in which the air was very still and the echoes of his breathing and movement were the only sounds to be heard, and it never occurred to me to make a disbelieve attempt. My character believed he was buried alive and died screaming, while the other members of the party stood around critiquing his trapped-in-a-box performance and holding up scorecards like a bunch of sadistic Olympic judges. In the campaign I'm running, the party was riding along the riverbank on some donkeys. Suddenly, they were attacked by a group of massive crocodiles, which got surprise rounds on the party due to good stealth rolls. First thing the Dragonborn fighter tried to do was a sick backflip off his donkey and throw his greatsword at one of the crocodiles that had grappled the tiefling ranger. I made him roll acrobatics, and if he succeeded, rolled a hit. Natural 20 on acrobatics. The crocodiles and his teammates are stunned at his perfect form and grace. He sticks the landing. The gods themselves are weeping at the beauty. Rolled a hit, natural 1. Instead of gloriously decapitating the crocodile and saving his teammate with a single well-timed throw, he flings the sword at his teammate and nearly cuts her arm off. Having lost his weapon, he then attempted to stomp on the croc. Rolls another 1. He loses his balance and accidentally kicks the donkey. The donkey proceeds to kick him in the face, and he is prone for the rest of the turn. This isn't so much of a matter of critical failure, as much as it was a matter of critical stupidity. This is another one of those incidents from the party that we named the Fumbling Four, which I have mentioned in another post. So we were in a dungeon, in a long hallway with a door at the end. Our dwarven thief, wearing spiked armor, was fiddling with a trap on the door and trying to figure out how to disarm it. Unfortunately, he was taking too long. At this point, our barbarian fighter decided that he was just going to charge down the hall and burst through the door. He did so without warning. So the barbarian goes charging down the hall and impales himself on the thief's armor. The thief sets off the trap, and there is an explosion. The thief, the barbarian, and the wizard's familiar all die. The wizard fails his con check when his familiar dies and drops to the floor unconscious. Our cleric had to use the Rod of Resurrection to bring back the barbarian and the thief, Unfortunately, the rod failed when trying to resurrect the thief, and he was no longer able to be resurrected. The cleric, however, was not satisfied with that and decided to use a scroll of reincarnation. Our dwarven thief was reincarnated as a gnome. At least he was still a thief. My funniest wasn't actually a critical failure at all. It was a critical success, with which I wiped out the entire party in one hot, very hot second. The game was Chivalry and Sorcery, a very old fantasy game that I believe predates D&D. Certainly predates everything but first edition D&D. C&S is quite a complex game with a very detailed and mathematical system of elemental magic that works in segmented spells. For example, to make a fireball, you need 3 components. Create fire, which makes a simple flame, amplify fire, turns it into a raging fireball, and move fire, throws that fireball at the enemy. And that's exactly what I did, in an underground tunnel when facing a horde of undead of seemingly unstoppable numbers. Create fire, amplify fire, move fire. I got a critical success on amplify. The critical success meant that the amount of fire I created was much greater than I was expecting. The DM did the maths and calculated that the volume of the fireball was twice the volume of space within the tunnel. Oops. Some friends of mine were storming a kobold hideout just outside the town of Bacone. The premise was that they'd stolen the E off the end of the enchanted sign, causing the town, now Bacon, to become vulnerable to kobold infestation. Being that the town's wordsmith was missing, they couldn't replace the E, so the adventurers needed to go retrieve it. They blasted open the gates to the kobold's hideout, an old abandoned fort, and engaged in combat. My friend Matt, playing a level 1 elven wizard, really can't take a hit, so a kobold makes to spear him when he says, wait, I'm a kobold. I roll the kobold's attack. 1. Dryly I say, he's fooled by your clever ruse. What? The kobold says, halting mid-attack. The table had a good chuckle at that one. If the next kobold to attack had gotten a bad roll too, I would have had that first one stop him and go, wait, he's a kobold! Hello, my pillowy little cream puffs of infinite universal wisdom, using those temporary meat bodies to gather all the experience required to collectively achieve godhood, like Naruto using his shadow clones to accelerate his learning of new jutsu. Thank you for attuning your sweet syrupy attention to this channel. If you're new here, please say hello in the comments. If you're not new here, please welcome the new folks with open loving arms. May the yarns spun here inspire joy in joyless places, abundance in scarcity, and light in darkness. And of course, may the dice ever be in your favor. There's your bardic inspiration for the day. Please sub for Nat 20s. Please share your stories in the comments. We'll tell them. And please be a glimmering beacon of unconditional kindness as an example to those around you to broadcast how wonderful life can be when we simply love and accept freely. Here's a fart, and have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time.